The wind was colder than usual that evening. It moved through the city streets like it was in a hurry, brushing past tall glass buildings and empty sidewalks. People were rushing home, holding their coats tight, not want to stay outside any longer than necessary. Near the entrance of one of the most expensive office buildings in the city stood a man holding the small hand of his 8-year-old daughter. He tried to stand straight, but the tiredness in his body made it difficult. His coat was old but clean. His shoes had small cracks on the sides. In his other hand, he carried a small travel bag, the only bag they had left. His daughter looked up at him with quiet eyes. She was not crying. She had cried enough in the past few weeks. Now she just watched him, trusting him, waiting for him to fix something he no longer knew how to fix. Just 3 months ago, he had his own small company. It was not huge, but it paid the bills. He worked hard for years to build it from nothing. Long nights, missed birthdays, endless meetings. He believed in it with his whole heart. Then one deal went wrong. One partner backed out at the last minute. Investors pulled their money. Bills started piling up. He tried to borrow. He tried to negotiate. He even sold his car. But sometimes when things fall apart, they fall apart quickly. The bank gave him notices. The landlord gave him warnings. The phone kept ringing with people asking for payments he no longer had. He told his daughter everything would be fine. He believed it when he said it. Until the day they were asked to leave their apartment. He packed their clothes quietly while she sat on the bed, hugging her school bag. He smiled at her and said it was just temporary, a small adventure. She nodded, trying to be brave like him. They stayed at a cheap motel for a week. Then his money ran out completely. That was how they ended up standing outside that building. The building was known across the city. It belonged to a powerful business leader, a man people respected and feared at the same time. Newspapers wrote about him often. They talked about his success, his intelligence, and his sharp business decisions. People said he started with nothing and built an empire. The father had never met him, but he had read about him once, late at night, when he was searching for hope. Something about the story stayed in his mind. He did not come to ask for money. He only needed shelter, just a safe place for one night, somewhere warm for his daughter to sleep. He hesitated before walking toward the entrance. Security guards stood near the glass doors. The lights inside the building were bright and warm, almost inviting. But he knew places like this were not meant for people like him anymore. His daughter squeezed his hand. "Are we going inside?" she asked softly. He swallowed his pride. "Yes," he said gently. "We will just talk." They stepped forward. One of the security guards looked at them from head to toe. Not cruelly, just carefully. "Can I help you?" the guard asked. The father's voice felt dry. He cleared his throat. I need to speak to someone. Please. It's important. Do you have an appointment?" He shook his head. The guard's expression changed slightly. "Sir, this building is private property." The father nodded quickly. "I understand. I am not here for trouble. I just need to speak to the CEO, even for 2 minutes." The guard almost smiled at the impossibility of that request. The CEO does not meet people without appointments. The father looked down at his daughter. She was shivering now, even though she tried not to show it. He took a deep breath and said the words that had been heavy in his chest all day. "We need shelter, please." The guard froze for a second. He had heard many requests before, job requests, meeting requests, investment requests. But not this. Before he could respond, the glass doors opened behind him. A small group of people walked out, dressed in expensive suits. In the middle of them was a man who owned the building. He walked with calm confidence. Not fast, not slow, just steady. The kind of walk that showed he was used to being listened to. The father recognized him immediately from photographs. He did not plan this moment. It just happened. The security guard turned slightly, unsure whether to remove the father from the entrance. The CEO stopped when he noticed the tension. His eyes moved from the guard to the father, and then to the little girl. There was silence for a few seconds. "What is going on?" the CEO asked calmly. The guard spoke respectfully. "Sir, this man is asking to see you. He does not have an appointment." The CEO looked at the father again. The father felt his heart beating hard. This was his one chance. He stepped forward slightly but kept his tone respectful. "I am sorry to disturb you," he said. "I lost my business. I lost my home. I am not here to ask for money. I only need a safe place for my daughter tonight. We need shelter, please." His voice did not break, but his eyes did. The people standing around the CEO exchanged looks. Some seemed uncomfortable, others impatient. The CEO did not say anything immediately. He studied the father carefully. Not his clothes, not his bag. He looked at his face, at the way he held his daughter's hand tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. The little girl looked back at him without fear, only curiosity. The CEO remembered something in that moment, a memory from long ago, a building, a closed door, a man telling his own mother to leave. He blinked once, returning to present. "What was your business?" the CEO asked. The father was surprised by the question. "A small logistics company," he answered honestly. "It failed after one contract collapsed. I take responsibility for it. No excuses, no blaming others." The CEO noticed that too. "Did you try family?" he asked. "Yes," the father replied quietly. "They helped as much as they could." "And friends?" He gave a small, tired smile. "People stay when things are good." The wind blew harder. The little girl moved closer to her father. The CEO looked at her again. "How old are you?" he asked her gently. "8," she answered. "Do you go to school?" She nodded. "Yes, I like reading." The CEO felt something tighten in his chest. He turned to his assistant. "Cancel my dinner meeting." The assistant looked surprised but nodded. Then he looked at the security guard. "Let them inside." Everyone around him went quiet. The father could not believe what he heard. "Sir, I don't want to cause any trouble," he said quickly. "You are not," the CEO replied calmly. "Come in. It's cold." The glass doors opened fully this time. Warm air touched their faces as they stepped inside. The lobby was large and shining with marble floors. The father suddenly felt embarrassed by his worn shoes. But the CEO walked as if nothing was unusual. He led them to a quiet sitting area. "Sit," he said. The father and daughter sat carefully on the edge of the couch. The CEO stood in front of them for a moment, thinking. "You said you only need shelter," he said slowly. "For how long?" "Just tonight," the father replied. "I will figure something out tomorrow." The CEO looked at him closely. "People who say that usually don't have a tomorrow planned," he said. The father did not argue. Instead, he said something simple. "I will not give up. I just need one chance to stand again." The CEO heard those words clearly. One chance. He turned toward his assistant again. "Arrange a room at the company guest house," he said, "for as long as needed." The father's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't." "Yes, you can," the CEO interrupted gently. "But understand something. I do not believe in charity. I believe in opportunity." The father listened carefully. "Tomorrow morning," the CEO continued, "you will come back here. We will talk about what you can do. Not what you lost. What you can do." The father felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. Real hope. He stood up slowly. "Thank you," he said quietly. The CEO nodded once. "Do not thank me yet," he replied. "Life tests people twice. Once when they rise, and once when they fall. Tomorrow, I will see which kind of man you are." The father understood. This was not the end of his struggle. It was the beginning of something else. As they followed the assistant toward the elevator, the little girl looked back at the CEO and smiled. He watched them disappear behind the closing doors. For a moment, the powerful businessman stood alone in the quiet lobby. He remembered being a young boy, standing outside a building with his own mother, asking for help. No one had opened the door for them. Tonight, he had opened one, and he knew somehow that this decision would change more than just one family's life. It would test his own heart too. Outside, the cold wind continued to move through the city. But inside that building, for the first time in weeks, a father and his daughter felt warm. And the night that began with desperation slowly turned into the first step of a new beginning. The guest house was quiet and simple, nothing like the tall glass building they had entered the night before. It was clean, warm, and peaceful. The father barely slept, even though the bed was soft. His daughter slept deeply beside him, her small hand resting on his arm, as if she was afraid he might disappear. He stayed awake most of the night staring at the ceiling. His mind kept replaying everything that had happened. The cold street, the security guard, the moment the CEO stopped walking, the words he had spoken. "Tomorrow, I will see which kind of man you are." That sentence stayed with him. He knew this was not charity. This was a test. At sunrise, he quietly got out of bed and looked out the window. The city looked different in the morning light. Cleaner, full of movement, people going somewhere, people with purpose. He wanted that feeling again. His daughter woke up slowly and rubbed her eyes. When she realized they were still inside a warm room, she smiled. "Are we staying here?" she asked softly. "For now," he said gently, "but today is important." She sat up. "Are you going to see the building man again?" He nodded. She looked serious for a moment, like she was thinking deeply. "You will do good," she said with confidence. He smiled at her bravery. "I hope so." After breakfast, a car arrived to take him back to the company headquarters. He left his daughter at the guest house with staff who promised to take care of her. As he stepped into the car, his hands felt slightly cold again, not from the weather, from pressure. This meeting would decide everything. When he arrived at the building, it felt different from the night before. During the day, it was full of employees walking quickly, carrying files, speaking on phones. No one looked at him twice, but he felt their eyes anyway. He was wearing the same clean, but old clothes. He was taken to a private office on the top floor. The CEO was already there, standing near a large window that overlooked the city. He did not turn immediately when the father entered. "Sit," he said calmly. The father sat down across from the large wooden desk. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then the CEO turned around. "I did not bring you here to rescue you," he said directly. "I brought you here to understand you." The father nodded. He appreciated the honesty. "Tell me exactly what happened to your company," the CEO said. And so he did. He explained how he started small. One truck, one contract, slowly building trust with clients. He described the deal that went wrong, a large expansion that depended on one major partner. When that partner backed out without warning, loans became impossible to repay. Suppliers demanded payments. Employees had to be let go. He did not blame the economy. He did not blame competitors. "I made a mistake," he admitted. "I expanded too fast without protecting myself." The CEO listened without interrupting. "What did you learn?" he asked. "That growth without safety is dangerous," the father replied. "And that pride can stop you from asking for advice." The CEO's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in thought. "You still want to run a business?" "Yes," he answered honestly. "But first I need to stand again." The CEO walked slowly toward the desk and sat down. "When I was young," he began quietly, "my mother worked 3 jobs. We were asked to leave our home more than once. I learned early that no one owes you kindness. But I also learned that if someone gives you one opportunity, you treat it like gold." The father listened carefully. "I built this company because I refused to stay down," the CEO continued. "But along the way, I stopped trusting people. I stopped believing in second chances." He paused. "Last night, when you said you only needed shelter, I saw something. Not weakness, responsibility." The father felt his chest tighten. "I am going to offer you a position," the CEO said. "It is not a high one. It is not comfortable. It is in one of our struggling logistics divisions." The father's eyes widened slightly. Logistics, that was his field. "It is currently losing money," the CEO continued. "Management there lacks direction. You will start at a basic salary. You will report to a department head. No special treatment. If you fail, you leave. If you succeed, we talk again." The father did not hesitate. "I accept." The CEO studied him. "You did not even ask the salary." "It is more than I had yesterday," he replied quietly. For the first time, the CEO allowed a small smile. "Good," he said. "You start today." Within an hour, the father was introduced to the logistics department. The atmosphere there felt heavy. Employees worked, but without energy. Files were stacked carelessly. Conversations were short and tense. The department head looked skeptical when he was introduced. "This is a new addition?" he asked flatly. "Yes," the CEO replied. "He has experience in logistics operations." The department head nodded politely, but did not seem impressed. After the CEO left, the real mood became clear. Some employees whispered. Others simply ignored him. He understood. To them, he was just another outsider. Worse, someone personally brought in by the CEO. He did not argue. He did not try to prove anything immediately. Instead, he asked for reports. Old contracts, shipment delays, loss statements. By lunchtime, he had filled a notebook with notes. The department head watched him carefully. "You think you can fix this?" he asked at one point. "No," the father replied honestly. "But I think we can." The answer surprised him. Over the next few hours, he moved quietly between teams. He asked drivers about delays. He asked warehouse workers about damaged goods. He asked office staff about communication issues. He did not act like a boss. He listened, and slowly, people began answering more openly. One driver admitted routes were poorly planned. A warehouse worker said inventory software was outdated. An assistant confessed that suppliers were paid late, causing tension. By evening, he had a clear picture, not a failure, but of mismanagement and low morale. When he returned to the CEO's office at the end of the day, he was tired but focused. "Well," the CEO asked. "It is not broken," the father said. "It is neglected." "Explain." "The team is capable, but no one listens to them. Routes are inefficient. Payments are delayed. Communication is weak. Small problems became big because no one addressed them early." The CEO leaned back in his chair. "And your solution?" "Give me 1 week," the father said. "No promises. Just 1 week to reorganize routes and improve supplier communication. If there is no visible improvement, I will leave." The CEO stared at him for a long moment. "You are confident." "No," he corrected gently. "I am responsible." Silence filled the room again. "Fine," the CEO said finally. 1 week. As the father walked out of the office, he felt the weight of that promise. 1 week to prove he deserved not just shelter, but respect. That night, when he returned to the guest house, his daughter ran to him. "How is it?" she asked. He knelt down to her level. "It was hard," he admitted, "but good." She smiled proudly. "I told you." He hugged her tightly. For the first time in months, he did not feel like a man running from failure. He felt like a man walking toward a second chance. In his own office, the CEO stood by the window again, looking at the city lights. He questioned himself for a moment. Had he made an emotional decision? Was this a mistake? But deep inside, he knew something. He was not testing only the father. He was testing his own belief that people deserve one real opportunity to rise after they fall. And tomorrow would begin the first real challenge. The next morning, the father woke up before sunrise. His daughter was still sleeping peacefully, her small chest rising and falling with each quiet breath. He did not wake her. Instead, he quietly washed his face, tied his worn shoes, and sat for a few minutes staring at the sunlight creeping through the curtains. Today was going to be another long day, a day to prove he was not only worthy of the opportunity, but capable of rebuilding something real from the ashes. He had memorized the CEO's words from yesterday. 1 week to reorganize routes and improve supplier communication. If there is no visible improvement, I will leave. Those words repeated in his mind like a steady drumbeat. 1 week. That was not much time, but it was enough to show effort, persistence, and determination. By the time he reached the company headquarters, the logistics department was already buzzing with its usual energy. Drivers checked schedules. Warehouse workers moved crates. Phones rang constantly. The father walked slowly, letting the scene settle in before speaking. He didn't want to appear impatient or overconfident. He wanted the team to know he was listening first. "Good morning," he said softly, stepping into the main office area. Some heads turned. A few workers looked skeptical. A young supervisor narrowed his eyes as he noticed the new man. "Morning," someone mumbled. He smiled faintly, not trying to be charming. Instead, He crouched near a workstation where a clerk was struggling with old paperwork. "Can you show me what you're working on?" he asked kindly. The clerk hesitated, surprised at the interest. Most leaders in the past had simply demanded updates without listening. Slowly, he handed over the documents and explained the issues. As the father listened, he took notes carefully. Nothing was ignored. Every small mistake, every delay, every outdated process was recorded. He did not interrupt. He only asked questions to understand, not to accuse. That earned him something that morning. Respect, even if small, from those who had grown used to silence or criticism from management. By midday, he had walked through the entire department. Routes were chaotic, deliveries were late, communications were fragmented, and supplier payments were inconsistent. Nothing was impossible to fix, but would require focus, patience, and a willingness to hear people out. He gathered the team together in a small conference room. "I know things have been hard," he began, his voice steady but calm. "I know that mistakes happen, and it's easy to get discouraged. I am not here to blame anyone. I am here to help fix what can be fixed. We will work together. But I need honesty. If something is wrong, tell me. No fear. No excuses. Just truth." Some employees exchanged looks. They had never heard a manager speak like this. Over the past weeks, they had seen leaders shout, threaten, or ignore. Now, someone asked for honesty and promised teamwork in return. A few people nodded slowly. He outlined small, immediate steps of the day. Review delivery routes, check inventory lists, ensure suppliers are contacted on time. Nothing grand, nothing overwhelming. But every action was designed to restore confidence and create order from chaos. The supervisor, a man who had worked in the department for over 10 years, watched quietly. He had seen many fixers come and go. Some promised big changes. Others criticized and left people demoralized. This man's approach was different, calm, observant, and practical. The supervisor kept his thoughts to himself for now, waiting to see if action would follow words. The father spent the morning in constant motion. He rode in delivery trucks, walked the warehouse floor, checked software systems, and spoke to suppliers on the phone. Every conversation was polite, clear, and solution-oriented. He did not complain about his own hardships. He did not mention losing his company. He only focused on fixing what was in front of him. Lunch arrived, but he hardly noticed. He ate quickly while reviewing route maps and scheduling calls. He could feel the pressure building, but he welcomed it. He needed to stay sharp. One misstep could prove he wasn't ready for this chance. By mid-afternoon, subtle changes started to show. Drivers adjusted their schedules. Warehouse staff reorganized inventory to match actual demand. Suppliers agreed to temporary arrangements, impressed by the father's professionalism and clarity. Small victories, but important victories. He jotted notes in his worn notebook, making sure nothing was forgotten. The supervisor, who had been skeptical all day, approached him quietly. "You're actually listening," he said in a low voice. "That doesn't happen here much. People usually just talk over us." The father nodded. "We can fix a lot if we listen first." The supervisor smiled faintly and walked away. It was a small moment, but it felt significant. Change often started with small trust-building gestures. He knew this. Late afternoon arrived, and the father noticed tension rising among some staff members. Long-term habits are hard to change, even when improvements are visible. A driver complained about a new delivery sequence. A warehouse worker argued over inventory labeling. The father stayed calm. He acknowledged the concerns, explained the reasoning, and adjusted where necessary. He didn't let tempers or pride derail progress. He treated each person with respect, even when correcting mistakes. At the end of the day, he gathered the team again. "Today was a start," he said quietly. "We have work left, but I saw dedication, intelligence, and honesty. That is more than I expected." He noticed nods and quiet murmurs of agreement. Some employees seemed to relax for the first time in months. Small changes, when combined, could lead to larger results. After leaving the department, he returned to the guest house. His daughter ran to greet him. "How was it?" she asked eagerly. "Tiring," he admitted, "but good. Progress is being made." She smiled. "You did it." He laughed softly, ruffling her hair. Not alone. Everyone helped. That evening, as he prepared a simple dinner, he reflected on the day. He remembered his own past, when he had struggled to keep his company afloat, when employees had looked to him for answers, and when small victories had kept hope alive. Those memories were painful, but they were also motivating. He understood now how fragile success could be and how quickly it could vanish without teamwork, listening, and honesty. The next morning, he arrived at the company ready to continue. The week had begun, and he knew he had only 6 days left to show tangible results. He reviewed reports, analyzed the previous day's changes, and met with suppliers again. He emphasized consistency and reliability, making sure that each improvement could be measured and maintained. As the days passed, the department slowly transformed. Delivery delays were reduced. Inventory errors were corrected. Employee morale improved. He did not take credit for every success. Instead, he highlighted the efforts of his team. This earned him more trust and engagement. Staff began coming to him with suggestions instead of complaints. The small victories of yesterday became meaningful patterns today. By the 4th day, even the most skeptical staff members acknowledged progress. The supervisor, who had doubted him from the start, approached him quietly. "You've earned respect," the supervisor said. "People are listening now. They want to work." The father nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. It was not just about numbers. It was about relationships, trust, and integrity. Those were things no report could show, but they were the foundation for lasting success. On the 6th day, the CEO returned to check progress. The father prepared a brief summary, focusing on measurable improvements and team engagement. The CEO listened attentively, asking questions occasionally, but allowing the father to explain. "You've done well," the CEO said finally. "Not because of a miracle, but because of effort, honesty, and leadership. You've not only improved operations, but you've earned the respect of your team. That is rare." The father bowed his head slightly, grateful for the recognition, but aware there was more work ahead. Walking back to the guest house that evening, he felt a sense of accomplishment. For the first time since losing everything, he felt like a man rebuilding not just his career, but his life. His daughter noticed the change too, smiling proudly as he entered the room. They had come to the first challenge together, and it had strengthened their bond. He had learned patience, humility, and the power of listening. He had also learned that opportunity was only as valuable as the work put into it. He sat by the window that night, watching the city lights flicker. He realized the journey was far from over. Success was fragile, and challenges would come again. But the foundation had been laid. 1 week of effort had changed more than just a department. It had begun to rebuild his confidence, his self-respect, and his hope. Tomorrow would bring new tests, perhaps bigger than these. But he knew something now that he had forgotten in the months of struggle. Even after losing everything, a second chance could transform a life, if he was willing to work for it with honesty, integrity, and heart. And he was ready. The morning started like any other. Sunlight spilled across the city streets, and the father walked into the logistics department with a clear plan in mind. The team was already preparing for the day, and there was a quiet sense of confidence lingering in the air. Things had been improving steadily, and he felt the satisfaction of small victories slowly building. But that morning, he had no idea that the real test was about to begin. It came as a message on his phone, a short email marked urgent. The company's main competitor had released a public statement accusing them of failing to deliver crucial shipments and mismanaging contracts. Social media was alive with criticism, and clients were calling in worried and angry. The logistics department was now at the center of the storm. He felt a chill run through his body. This was bigger than route optimization or supplier schedules. This was a challenge that could undo everything he and the team had worked for during the week. But he took a deep breath, steadying himself. Panic would not help. He had been down before, but he had learned that clarity and calm could move mountains. He called an emergency meeting. The team gathered quickly, whispering in uncertainty. Some looked frightened. They had never faced a crisis on this scale, and the accusation from a major competitor made it worse. The father stood in front of them, hands on the table, voice firm but calm. "We have a problem," he said plainly. "We are being accused of mistakes we did not make. Clients are worried. Some of our shipments are delayed due to factors outside our control. But this is not the time to panic. We need clear thinking, honesty, and action. The room went quiet. Employees looked at him, unsure if he really knew how to handle such a crisis. I need each of you to report the truth, he continued. No exaggeration. No hiding mistakes. We will face this together and fix it. If we tell the truth, we can find solutions. If we panic or hide things, we lose control. Slowly, people began to speak. One employee admitted that a shipment had been delayed due to a miscommunication with a supplier. Another mentioned missing documentation on a recent delivery. Small problems, but together they created a bigger perception issue. He listened carefully, asking questions to clarify each point. His calmness reassured the team, and soon a plan began to form. We will contact each client directly, he said. We will explain the situation honestly and provide solutions. No excuses, just clear communication and action. The team nodded, energized by his focus. They split into groups, taking responsibility for different clients and shipments. The father coordinated with suppliers, arranged expedited deliveries, and made sure the warehouse and drivers were in sync. Every step was deliberate, organized, and transparent. By late afternoon, the CEO arrived to check on the situation. He walked into the department quietly, observing the team at work. The father approached him, giving a concise summary of the crisis and the steps they had taken. I see you have organized the team quickly, the CEO said, voice calm but curious. Do you believe this will work? Yes, the father replied. We cannot change the accusations, but we can control our response. Honest communication and immediate action will protect our reputation and restore trust. The CEO nodded, impressed. He stepped back to watch as the father returned to coordinating the team. There was no hesitation, no doubt in his movements. His focus was total, and his employees followed him willingly. By evening, updates from clients began to arrive. Some were still frustrated, but most were impressed by the swift response and transparency. A few even offered support and encouragement. Slowly, the storm began to calm. The father stayed late that night, making sure every shipment was accounted for and every client contacted. He called his daughter briefly to check in, hearing her sleepy voice on the phone. Are you okay, Daddy? She asked softly. I'm fine, he said, smiling even though she couldn't see him. We are fixing things. Her small sigh of relief was enough to remind him why he was doing this. It wasn't just about proving himself to the CEO or the company. It was about showing his daughter that setbacks could be faced, that challenges could be met with courage and integrity. The next morning brought more pressure. Some negative news from social media still lingered, and competitors tried to push the narrative further. But the father remained steady. He held another meeting, this time including the department head and supervisors from other departments affected by the crisis. Listen carefully, he began. We cannot control everything outside this company, but we can control our actions, our communication, and our integrity. We will respond quickly, honestly, and respectfully. That is how we win back trust. Employees felt his sincerity. They began sharing ideas for improving processes, documenting shipments more clearly, and building better communication with clients. The father encouraged every suggestion, praising initiative, and giving responsibility to those willing to step up. By the afternoon, progress was clear. Several clients had expressed satisfaction at the quick response. Suppliers were cooperating. The internal team was more organized than ever. And through it all, the father maintained calm authority, earning the respect of everyone around him. The CEO returned again in the evening. He watched quietly as the father coordinated the team, spoke to clients, and resolved issues with patience and precision. The CEO remembered the words he'd said a few days ago. I will see which kind of man you are. Now he knew. This is impressive. The CEO said quietly when the father reported progress. You've handled a crisis that could have destroyed confidence in this company. Most people would have panicked or blamed others. I just focus on what could be done, the father replied. Panic does not solve anything. Clear action and honesty do. The CEO nodded again, a small smile forming. He could see leadership, not just skill. He could see character. The father returned to the guest house that night exhausted but satisfied. His daughter was already asleep, and he sat beside her bed for a moment, reflecting on everything that had happened. He had faced a real test, one that could have undone his progress. Instead, he had risen to the challenge. He realized that leadership was not about authority or titles. It was about responsibility, calmness under pressure, honesty, and the ability to inspire others. And he had seen that even people who doubted him could change when treated with respect and trust. The next few days continued with careful attention to detail. The crisis slowly faded from public attention as clients saw the truth and appreciated the company's response. The logistics department emerged stronger than before. Employees worked with renewed confidence. Suppliers communicated more effectively, and the father began to feel that his place in the company was real and deserved. He understood now that this was more than just a job. It was a second chance to rebuild his life, to show his daughter the value of persistence, integrity, and courage. That week of challenges would stay with him forever. It had tested him in ways he had never imagined, but it also proved that even when circumstances seem impossible, determination, honesty, and focus could create hope, respect, and success. As he finally lay down to sleep that night, he felt something he hadn't felt in months, a quiet confidence. The storm had passed, and he had survived it with dignity and responsibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he knew he was ready. He had not only protected the company, he had strengthened it, and he had strengthened himself. He thought of his daughter sleeping beside him and whispered quietly, "We can do this. Together, we can do anything." And in that moment, hope was no longer fragile. It had become real. The morning sun streamed through the curtains, filling the guest house with warmth. The father woke up feeling different from the past weeks. He was tired, yes, but it was a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from work done honestly, from challenges faced with courage, and from victories earned with effort. His daughter was already awake, quietly playing with her small notebook. She looked up at him with her bright, trusting eyes. "Morning, Daddy," she said softly. "Morning," he replied, smiling. "Ready for today?" She nodded, excitement dancing in her eyes. "Are we going to see the building man again?" "Yes," he said, "but today will be different." He had come a long way since that first night when he had asked for shelter. The journey had been full of uncertainty, stress, and doubt, but it had also been full of learning, growth, and unexpected kindness. He thought about the week he had spent turning the logistics department around, guiding the team through a real crisis, and rebuilding trust with clients. The victories had not been large or flashy, but they had been real. Every small success mattered. By the time he arrived at the company headquarters, the lobby was alive with the usual energy. Employees moved quickly. But now he noticed smiles and nods from those who had once ignored him. The respect was subtle, almost unspoken, but it was there. He was taken to the CEO's office, where the man was already waiting. The CEO stood near the window, looking out at the city. When he turned, his face was calm, but there was a quiet sense of approval in his eyes. "You've done well," the CEO said. "Not only with numbers, but with people. Leadership is more than improving a department. It is about inspiring others, earning trust, and making others believe in themselves. You've done all that." The father felt a warmth spread through his chest. He bowed his head slightly, humbled by the recognition. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I could not have done it without the team. They were willing to trust and work hard, and that made everything possible." The CEO smiled. "That is exactly why I brought you here. I wanted to see if you could lead, not just manage. And you prove that leadership is not about titles. It is about responsibility, honesty, and courage. Today, I am offering you a permanent position, not just in logistics, but as a senior manager who will have authority across multiple departments." The father's eyes widened slightly. A permanent position, stability, respect, something he had not dared to imagine in weeks. I don't know what to say," he said. His voice caught, though he tried to keep it steady. "You don't need to say anything," the CEO replied gently. "Just continue doing what you've done. Lead with integrity, and everything else will follow." For the first time in a long while, the father allowed himself to feel relief. It was not a relief built on luck, but on effort, persistence, and the opportunity someone had given him when he had no other hope. After leaving the office, he walked through the corridors with a new sense of confidence. Employees greeted him warmly, some with smiles, others with nods of respect. The department head approached him quietly. "I underestimated you," he said sincerely. "You've changed the department, and more importantly, you've changed how people feel about their work." The father nodded, grateful for the acknowledgement. "Thank you. I only did what needed to be done." He returned to the guest house that evening, carrying a small bag for his daughter's favorite stuffed toy, which he bought as a reward for her patience and support. She ran to him, hugging him tightly. "Daddy, did you do it?" she asked, her eyes wide with curiosity and hope. "Yes," he said softly. "We did it. You helped me believe I could." She smiled and jumped up and down. "I knew you could." That night, he sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. The world felt different now, not because the city had changed, but because he had. He thought about the first night when he had approached the office building, trembling with fear, uncertainty, and hope. A simple request for shelter had begun a journey that had tested him, shaped him, and transformed him. He thought about the CEO, a man who could have ignored him like so many others had in his own past. Instead, the CEO had chosen to give him a chance. One chance. That decision had set everything in motion. He understood now that life was unpredictable. Sometimes, the people who can help most are the ones who have the power to decide who deserve a chance. And sometimes, the person who rises after falling is the one who proves that kindness and opportunity are never wasted. Over the next few weeks, his new role allowed him not only to stabilize the logistics department fully, but also to mentor employees in other struggling areas. His practical experience, combined with the lessons learned from losing his own business, made him a guide and a leader who could see problems clearly and address them effectively. Clients who had once doubted the company began sending notes of appreciation. Employees felt empowered and valued. The little changes he implemented grew into systems that improved efficiency across multiple departments. Each day, he saw tangible proof that effort, integrity, and honesty could create real, lasting change. One afternoon, the CEO called him to the office again. This time, the meeting was less formal. The CEO handed him a folder with reports, but also a small note. "Sometimes, success is measured by what you do when no one is watching. You have proven yourself." The father felt a lump in his throat. He thought about the nights when he had doubted himself, the long hours when he feared he would fail, the cold streets, and the nights without sleep. Every struggle had been worth it. Every moment of persistence mattered. "Thank you," he said quietly, holding back emotion. "You earned it," the CEO replied simply. "Never forget that, and never forget the responsibility that comes with it. Leadership is not only about making things work. It's about guiding others, protecting them, and helping them succeed alongside you." The father left the office feeling lighter than he had in months. He had a home again, a secure job, a future for his daughter, and most importantly, he had restored a sense of self-worth. The little girl ran to meet him, holding a drawing she had made of their small family under the sun. "It's us," she said proudly. "You and me happy again." He hugged her tightly, feeling tears in his eyes. "Yes, my love, happy again." That evening, as they sat down for a simple dinner, he reflected on the journey. He remembered the fear, the uncertainty, and the hopeless nights. He remembered the CEO's calm eyes and quiet question, "If I give you a chance, will you fight for it?" He had fought. He had worked tirelessly, listened carefully, and led with integrity. And now, he had the life he had almost lost. He looked at his daughter and smiled. "Life will always have challenges," he said softly. "But if we face them with honesty, courage, and effort, we can rise again. And sometimes, someone's belief in you can make all the difference." She nodded, understanding more than words could express. "I will always believe in you, Daddy," she said. And in that moment, the father realized that the greatest success was not measured by money, titles, or recognition. It was measured by hope restored, trust earned, and love shared. Weeks later, the CEO called a company-wide meeting. Employees gathered, curious about the announcement. The father stood quietly in the back, unsure what to expect. The CEO spoke about resilience, leadership, and the power of giving someone a real opportunity. Then he shared the story of the father, How he had arrived at the building asking only for shelter, how he had led with honesty, face a crisis, and inspired a team in a single week. Applause filled the room. Employees cheered, and the father felt a warmth spreading in his chest. He looked at his daughter in the audience, who was clapping with a bright smile, proud and happy. The CEO's closing words were simple but powerful. Sometimes the greatest acts of courage are quiet, and sometimes one chance can change two lives forever. This man is proof. The father bowed his head slightly, overwhelmed. He had come from the streets with nothing, and now he stood recognized not for what he had lost, but for what he had rebuilt and for the character he had shown along the way. That night, as he tucked his daughter into bed, he whispered, "We made it, together." And she replied, sleepily, "Yes, Daddy, together." For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to feel fully at peace. He had faced despair, embraced responsibility, and worked tirelessly. He had grown not only as a professional, but as a parent, a man, and a human being. And in that quiet moment, the father knew something that would stay with him forever. Kindness, opportunity, and courage could truly change lives. Sometimes, all it takes is one chance, and the strength to rise when given it.